Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We have a lot of news to get into today, from CPI, drama in the Middle East, and much more. I mean, it's a pretty rough day out there for some of the risk on areas for the AI trade specifically. And there's a reason for that. It doesn't have as much to do with today as it does tomorrow. And, well, we'll discuss that. The Jerome Powell and Trump's doubling down on this. Like, there's a lot happening today. We're going to break it down, put it into context, and discuss what's coming next for this market. We will also get into your Tesla stock breaking news. Specifically, Tesla is actually doing better than a lot of your other AI stocks or risk on areas. Tesla's down 0.2% today, so it is a notable outperformer. So we'll get into it. Hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you guys have not done so already. If you guys want to come trade and invest alongside us, check that link out down below in the description of today's episode. But with that said, let's begin. So if you look at the headline indexes today, the Dow is down 0.61%. S&P's down 0.22%, NASDAQ down 0.02%, Russell 2000 up 0.16%, the VIX is up 3.5% today. CPI came in lower than expected, but you have all of these other things happening. As I talked about yesterday, CPI was probably going to be less of a catalyst this time around versus what you have seen before. Now, if you take a look at the heat map, defensives outperforming and selective stocks, right? Software doing really bad today. Technology generally doing pretty bad today. Nvidia's green, AMD's green, Intel's green, Broadcom's green, Google's green. But exclude those stocks and most of this market's pretty deep in the red. Okay. Banks, credit cards, asset management, medical, healthcare, I mean, consumer cyclical, home improvement, real estate, basically every other industry. Oil and gas is doing well today because of the news we're going to get into in today's episode, but it is really a risk off kind of a day today. And I think a lot of it has to do with the big catalyst that we have tomorrow. We'll discuss that in a few moments. But first, in big news today, Trump attacks Powell again amid Fed independence fears. He says he is incompetent or crooked. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon said anything that undermines Fed independence is probably not a great idea. Trump says here, quote, "He's billions of dollars over budget," Trump said, apparently referencing costs related to a multi-billion-dollar renovation at the Fed's Washington headquarters, which is at the center of the DOJ's probe. So he is either incompetent or he's crooked, Trump said. I don't know what he is, but he does, certainly, he doesn't do a very good job. So, again, a lot of people don't look at this as Powell has done anything wrong. Most people look at this and, just assume that Trump is pursuing this criminal investigation against Powell because Powell has not been lowering rates, right? I think that's what most people think. Now, Senate Banking Committee member John Kennedy said if you wanted to design a system to guarantee that interest rates would go up and not down, the best way to do that would be to have the Federal Reserve and the executive branch of the United States get in a pissing contest. We need this like we need a hole in the head, he added. So this is very much not a great situation for the markets. Even though Powell is outgoing in May, it's like, why are we doing this, right? It's just adding volatility to this market. And for investors, it's not the greatest development. Now, oil prices rose 3% today after Trump cancels meetings with Iran, tells protesters that help is on the way. Trump is doing a speech today in Detroit, largely about manufacturing, the economy, and specifically vehicles. But he's expected to mention Iran in his speech. Now, there are reports out today that up to 12,000 people have been killed in Iran, and Trump has threatened over and over again that the U.S. will intervene if the Islamic Republic kills protesters. So some crazy high numbers starting to come out. Now, Trump said on Truth Social today, quote, "Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price," the president said. "I've canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on the way. MEGA, make Iran great again." Iran is a major producer of oil, so if the situation gets worse, people are like, okay, well, you're going to have less supply hitting the markets. Supply and demand would mean prices would go higher, and that's exactly what you are seeing today. Oil up about 2.5% at the time of recording today's episode. What's actually interesting about all of what's happening today is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is actually responding positive. Bitcoin is up to 93,000, almost $400. Okay, it's up over 2% today. And it does seem like when there's broader instability out there in the world, Bitcoin tends to do better. We've seen with the whole Venezuela situation, Bitcoin did really well. Bitcoin went from 86,000 on December 29th. After the Venezuela situation on January 5th, it was almost 95,000. So, there's probably a great explanation for this, to why this is happening. Maybe people just, when there is volatility on a macro level, on a global scale, people feel more comfortable in Bitcoin, running away from the dollar a little bit, going into Bitcoin. That could make some sense. But for one reason or another, Bitcoin is working higher, and I would expect that following tomorrow's catalyst, you probably will see a pretty good market. Okay. I said this yesterday and over the weekend. I was expecting today was going to be more on the negative side, especially the second half of the trading day today, because the catalyst we have tomorrow is so large, you have to hedge for it. You have to be ready for the worst case scenario if you are a hedge fund or institution. Retail investors are free and open to do whatever they want. But if you're an institution and you have this fiduciary duty to protect your clients and their money, you have to hedge catalysts like this. Okay. Even though CPI today came out, it wasn't really the catalyst that it had been before. It's all about tomorrow. Now, core CPI today, year over year, came in at 2.6%. This marks the lowest U.S. inflation reading since March of 2021. Trump pressures Fed Chair Powell to cut rates. Markets bet that we do not see a rate cut until June. This December report beats expectations as headline inflation holds steady at 2.7%. And there's still a 95% chance the Fed holds rates this month. Donald Trump said on Truth Social today, quote, "Just out. Great low inflation numbers for the USA. That means that Jerome Too Late Powell should cut interest rates meaningfully. If he doesn't, he will just continue to be too late. Also out. Great growth numbers. Thank you, Mr. Tariff." And you can see here that Nick Timmerhouse says CPI was milder than anticipated in December. The headline index was up 0.31% and 2.7% over the 12 months. Core prices rose 0.24% and were up 2.6% from a year earlier. So core, these are the estimates from major banks. Core was up 0.24%. So if you look at the major banks, look at UBS. They were expecting 0.44%. Wells Fargo at 0.36%. Citigroup at 0.27%. They were the second lowest estimate. PNB Paribas at 0.25%. Citadel Securities at 0.38%, Deutsche Bank 0.35%, JP Morgan at 0.41%, Namara at 0.45%, Morgan Stanley at 0.36%. The average expectation was 0.36% for core. You came in at 0.24%. Let me show you just how big of a difference these numbers are on an annualized basis. Okay, 0.24% times 12 is 2.88%. Okay. Well, at the market's expectation, 0.36% for core times 12 is 4.32%. Okay. This was a very good inflation number today. Very good. Much better than expected. Why are the markets not doing better? There's one reason for this, among others. Yeah, is the Jerome Powell stuff great for stocks? Absolutely not. Is it really like a huge negative? Is it something that's going to take precedence over everything else? No. Is the Iran situation great for markets? No. But is it that big of a deal? No. Okay, we've already been through the whole airstrikes thing before. Markets do not care about global conflicts unless they disrupt markets. And Iran is a big producer of oil, so there could be, some issues there, but it's just not that big. CPI with these kind of numbers should have had a positive impact on the market. But we expected this, okay? I expected CPI was going to come in lower than expected today. So I'm not surprised to see these numbers, and I'm not surprised that the markets are down today. The reason for that is tomorrow's Supreme Court ruling on tariffs is such a large catalyst with so many possible outcomes. If you are Wall Street, you have to hedge for this event, okay? Because in one scenario, nothing changes. Supreme Court says all the tariffs are legal, there is zero refunds. That is not the base case expectation, okay? There's less than a 30% chance on betting markets like Kalshi that is what we get from the Supreme Court. Most people are expecting a lot of the tariffs are going to be deemed illegal. That most of the tariffs are probably not going to stick, and the government would have to refund that money. Okay. And Trump will just reinforce the tariffs with another act, and then you open the door for another Supreme Court ruling on tariffs, later this year or next year. It gets a little messy. Okay. Again, best case scenario is there's no change on tariffs. Base case scenario, there is some change in tariffs. Worst case scenario is all the tariffs are deemed illegal. Government has to refund all of the money from tariffs. That is the worst case scenario. Now, there's some positives to that as well. Like, you shouldn't have inflation problems. The Fed should be able to cut rates a lot faster. But you'd have a big problem in the bond market, as the government would have to raise, sell a lot of bonds to fund those refunds. Okay. And even then, so, like, the government's budget, part of it was incorporating tariff revenue. So, like, if that's not the case, it'd be a big problem. So with such a large distribution of possible outcomes tomorrow, you have to hedge for that if you're Wall Street. And I think that's been part of the reason why markets have not done as well as a lot of people would think, right? AI is alive and well. 2026 looks like it's going to be a great year. A new bullish Fed chair. Consumer gets a little bit better about mid-year with the big beautiful bill. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Real estate begins to pick up. There's a lot of positives for this market this year. And when you hear Wall Street talk on CNBC or other news outlets, virtually everyone is bullish. So why are stocks not doing better? Well, part of it has to do with this Supreme Court ruling, and we're not over the whole tariff situation yet. Even though a lot of people would like to think we are, it really ends tomorrow as long as the Supreme Court doesn't do anything too dramatic. So I think that tomorrow is going to be a buy the news event. As long as we don't have the worst case scenario, it is going to be a buy the news event. Okay? Because people are expecting the worst, or they're bracing for the worst. This is a very televised catalyst. Everyone knows this is coming tomorrow. And people were caught with their pants down April 2nd, and they don't want to be in that situation again. Donald Trump says today it is a good idea if Americans evacuate from Iran. Again, doesn't sound great. Trump, when asked about help on the way to Iran, says you are going to find out. Yikes. Donald Trump also says that a new Fed chair pick will be announced in the next few weeks. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says Trump's speech in Detroit will be about the economy, but there will likely be a mention of Iran. A U.S. official says Greenland action is possible within weeks or months, but it would take longer to get any deal actually completed. And here's where you can see it says thousands fear dead in Iran protest. At least 12,000 people may have been killed in Iran's crackdown on nationwide protests, far above official figures. Videos show bodies in Tehran morgues amid communication blackouts. Protests began over rising living costs, and human rights groups are calling for international action. Also in the news today, NVIDIA in China gets restrictions. NVIDIA chip purchases will be restricted to special circumstances. The Chinese government this week told some tech companies it would only approve their purchases for NVIDIA's H200 AI chips under special circumstances, such as for university research and development labs, according to two people with direct knowledge of the situation. BlackRock says inflation is no longer the Fed's main worry. Rick Reeder of BlackRock says that steady CPI data shows inflation is yesterday's problem, while labor market weakness are now the Fed's bigger concern. He notes recent strong economic growth has not translated into job gains, a trend the Fed is likely watching closely. Rick Reeder is now in the running to become the next Fed chair. Greenland's prime minister says Greenland is not for sale. Trump says inflation report provides Fed Chair Powell a chance to cut rates. And Senate Republican leader Thune says a credit card rate cap could make many lose credit access, which, that's the big problem, right? You slow down lending in the economy, and you see GDP, you see growth really take a pretty immediate hit. Bank of America says today this is the weakest labor market since 2011. So markets are also dealing with some of these comments from bank earnings in which they don't sound too great on the state of the labor market at this point. In specific news for Tesla today, there was some confusion about Tom Zhu, one of the executives at Tesla, that it looks like he bought $226 million worth of Tesla, but this is actually his stock options package, which hasn't fully vested yet. The vesting period will begin on April 5th, 2027, and 1/48 of the shares will vest each month thereafter, and all shares will be fully vested by March 5th, 2031. But this new option package does indicate Tom wants to stay at Tesla for years to come, which is great. And also in great news today, there are now at least 10 Tesla Cybercabs testing on public roads between Austin, the Bay Area, Buffalo, and Chicago. So testing in 4 states, specifically Chicago. That could be a big one. That would be a huge deal to get Cybercabs in Chicago. GM CEO Mary Barra, in a new interview on EVs, says, quote, "I'm a little surprised at some automakers that are really pulling away very quickly because we don't know what will be in 2029, 2030, 2032, Barra said, adding that she wants GM to maintain flexibility to adjust to how regulations may shift in future administrations. And in a new study today, more Republicans are warming up to electric vehicles. In 2023, a majority of Republican voters, 59%, agreed that EVs are for people people who see the world differently than they do, versus 25% of Democratic voters. By November 2025, only 49% of Republicans agreed, and the percentage of Republican voters who disagreed with the statement rose to 51%. That represents a 20-point net improvement in just 2 years, but much more progress still needs to be made. This is likely in relation to Elon. You know, a lot of Republicans went from not really liking Elon much in years prior to, you know, talk to Republicans today if you know one, and they probably have pretty favorable opinions towards Mr. Musk. So I think Musk has kind of opened the brand up a little bit to a different demographic that probably would have never bought a Tesla before or electric vehicle. Samsung will reportedly start supplying 5G modem chips to Tesla for some of its cars. Tesla in the past has used Qualcomm's modem chips, which were made in either China or Taiwan, while the Samsung chips will be made in South Korea. Tesla has rolled out a $5,000 price initiative in Norway, effectively offsetting a notable VAT increase that hit electric vehicle buyers at the start of 2026. All Model Y trims qualify for the incentive, along with most Tesla Model 3 trims. Tesla has just released FSD supervised V14.2.2.3, so we will see in the coming hours and days if there is a notable improvement here. Somebody said here, remember when Elon used to do gaming live streams and we could ask him questions? Yeah, I missed those streams too. For his June 10th, 2024 live stream, I got to ask Elon about Starship's heat shield tiles, and he answered with some fascinating facts. Elon Musk says, I guess I could do that again for subscribers. Tesla's new 7-seat option for $2,500 in the US is only available on the Model Y Premium all-wheel drive. Features a fold flat second row and third row seats, which, you know, Tesla releasing this 7-seat option for the Model Y in the US for only $2,500 extra is a big deal. I mean, if you have a big family, right, more than 3 kids, that's it. Like, you get a 7-seat option, you could have, you know, 6 kids plus yourself, or 5 kids plus your partner in the vehicle. That opens the door for a lot more people with larger families to buy a Tesla. And look at that. Secretary Pete Hegseth has arrived at SpaceX's headquarters to Starbase, Texas, to tour the facility with Elon Musk. So Elon and the administration, you know, really being on friendly terms is exactly what you want in the CEO of the companies you are investing in, right? This is what Elon's job is, especially with a high growth company like Elon that is going to rely on these people in the administration to approve things like robotaxi AI initiatives. This is exactly what you need. Lucid CEO says he replaced the company's entire software leadership team following the extremely buggy launch of their Gravity SUV, saying, quote, we're working through this. We will be over the hump by the end of January, the latest by the end of March. Option activity today for Tesla, you have 381 different trades totaling $132 million with a positive order value of 73%. So, you know, actually pretty bullish today despite what's happening in the broader markets. Tesla, again, performing a lot better than other stocks. You can actually see what's fascinating. Short interest fell in Tesla the most you have seen in quite a while, going from 3.2% down to 2.85% in the official short interest numbers. It's been a while since you've had a short interest decline like this. Again, on December 14th, the short interest was 3.13%. By December 30th, the short interest was 2.85%. You had 7 million shares that were covered in Tesla during that time frame. Times 7 million by roughly like $455 a share. That is $3.2 billion that was covered in Tesla stock in 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks of 2025. Again, not a lot of people want to be short and exposed to the upside and upside losses if you're short in Tesla in 2026 when it looks like it's going to be a good year. So again, you know, stocks coming under pressure today. I predicted this in prior videos. I'm not surprised at all. But CPI being as positive as it is, Wall Street was expecting collectively over 4%, run rates for CPI, 12-month annualized numbers. 4.3% was the expectation. You came in 0.24% times 12 is an annualized run rate of 2.88%. Substantially better than any major forecast. This was shocking today. Now, I know a lot of people are going to blame this market on the Powell situation. They're going to blame this market on the Iran situation. The fact of the matter is, it is all about the Supreme Court ruling tomorrow. And let me give you the baseline here. As little change as possible is the best outcome. No change at all is the best outcome. Minor tweaks in what is deemed legal in the tariff policy, that's okay. Wall Street's bracing for something a lot worse than that. So just like last Friday, we had a pre-market rally heading into the Supreme Court ruling. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we have something similar to that tomorrow as Wall Street, begins to buy the news upon the Supreme Court ruling, as long as it's not like anything, super terrible. So let me know your thoughts on all of this down below in the comment section. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you guys have not done so already. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.